I mean, but when you have a state and you have a civil society, a tribe tends to take a second role, and people will just come forward to the state for help. What's happening in Libya, it's nothing to do with tribes or tribalism. It's to do with a man and his sons surrounded by desperate, hopeless, helpless lynchmen who would do anything just to stay in power. And I wouldn't be very surprised if the whole of the Gaddafi tribe coming out and distancing themselves as their section did in Benghazi from the regime. So I didn't think this is to do with tribalism. It's all about injustice, a dictatorship that has been there for so long. And by the way, the tribe of Gaddafi, even the most loyal tribes and the tribe of Gaddafi themselves, they have not really benefited that much. It's only his own immediate family and a tiny network of cronies around him who have benefited from his regime. The rest are the same. If you look at the city of Sirte, where the tribe of Gaddafi living, they're just suffering as much as everyone else. Lack of infrastructure, of respect, even if you look at the closest lynchman and his cronies are not necessarily from his tribe, but they're thugs who happen to believe in his ideology and the way of running the country, and they just clustered around him. So it isn't to do with tribalism. It's about dislodging a regime which is a dictatorial.
Okay, Rashid Kikir, while we look at all these power shifts and what is playing out there in Libya, let's look a little bit outside that. Is it likely that Gaddafi will get any support in the Arab world? Does he have any close allies in the region?
What I have for Gaddafi right now is good luck. I mean, the guy, he's just went crazy. I mean, this is what I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna make it clear. Libyan lives, it's a red line, and he crossed it. It's not only he would got, there is no one, and I don't see Gaddafi, he knew from the beginning that his end is gonna be in Libya. The only place we can think is gonna be Zimbabwe, and that's it. I don't see that he's gonna support from anyone. And it just as I agree with Dr. Najm. I mean, his time is just done, and he lost it, and I think he lost everything.
Okay, that's where we are going to have to leave it. Thanks to all our guests for joining us, Faraj Najm, Aliyah Brahimi and Rashid Kikir. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Of course, we welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to insidestory@aljazeera.net. From the team here, goodbye.
The times change. The instruments evolve. The battlegrounds shift.
This is America! Our country!
But the international struggle continues.
He was murdered!
Uncompromising, hard-hitting investigations.
I can't get no justice from no one in Jamaica.
People and power, at this time on Al Jazeera.
On the next Riz Khan show, rock star and activist Yusuf Islam, formerly known as Cat Stevens, reveals the origins of his new song celebrating the popular uprisings in Egypt and beyond. Riz Khan, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Unpopular with some at home, untested overseas. The first year has not been easy for David Cameron and his coalition government. In conjunction with U2, Al Jazeera asks your questions to the British Prime Minister. World View, an interview with David Cameron at this time on Al Jazeera.
14 competing teams, 13 different venues, 3 host nations. Cricket is part of the fabric of life here, and this competition is the pinnacle of the one-day game. We'll be bringing you all the action and reaction from India, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. The Cricket World Cup on Al Jazeera.
The Golan Heights, one of the spoils of the 1967 war, home to 20,000 Israelis and source of 1/3 of all Israel's water. But what of the Syrians left behind? With families torn apart and all borders closed, they come to talk to their loved ones across the Shouting Valley. Across the Shouting Valley on Al Jazeera.
From local traders to international finance, it's commerce that makes the world go round. For global companies and developing markets, communication is the currency, and information is the most valuable commodity. Counting the cost at this time on Al Jazeera.
As geeks take on dictators, bloggers turn dissidents, and social networks root for social justice, governments are going cyber, spying on their citizens, erecting firewalls like iron curtains, and closing down websites. We ask, is cyber-generated change virtual or real? Empire at this time on Al Jazeera.
Blaming bin Laden, the embattled Libyan leader says Al-Qaeda is fueling the uprising against him. This as the country appears to be slipping from his grasp. Protesters claim to be in control of the east despite the continued deadly crackdown. Hello, I'm Darine Abu Gaida in Doha. This is Al Jazeera. In the next half an hour, we'll bring you the latest from Libya as Colonel Muammar Gaddafi's inner circle shrinks again. More diplomats resign, and a former close ally claims the Libyan leader has chemical weapons and is prepared to use them. Meanwhile, tribal chiefs and military deserters meet to forge a new future. In other news, the WikiLeaks founder says he'll appeal a British ruling to send him to Sweden to face questioning over sex crime allegations. Plus...
And I'm Andrew Thomas in Christchurch, New Zealand, with the latest on this city's devastating quake.
Libya's embattled leader Muammar Gaddafi has blamed Al-Qaeda and youths high on drugs for causing trouble in his country. In his second address to the nation since the uprising began, he continued to sound defiant, but he spoke via phone rather than in vision. But the man who has ruled Libya for more than 40 years is quickly losing control of his country. Let's bring you up to speed with what's happening in Libya. Thursday seen heavy fighting in the town of Zawiya, just 50 kilometers west of the capital, Tripoli, between opposition forces and those loyal to Gaddafi. Reports say at least 100 people are dead. But further to the west, police and soldiers have reportedly deserted the Libyan leader in the town of Zuwara. The opposition there claims it's now in control. And the world is now uniting in its opposition to the Gaddafi regime as well. The U.S. President Barack Obama, he's been speaking to world leaders about the situation in Libya. We'll have more on that in just a moment. But first, Lawrence Lee has this report.
The latest town to experience heavy fighting isn't very far from Tripoli. And that perhaps explains why protesters from Zawiya have told Al Jazeera that the army came to the town and opened fire on them with heavy artillery. Their hunting rifles no match.